Good day to you. My name is Willoughby-Smith, and I'd like to welcome you back to another segment of the Fashion Guru. Once again, may I take this prestige opportunity to thank the Review newspaper for this fantastic honor. This week, I would like to speak to you about the ever-dawning Matric Farewell season. The Matric Farewell season is perhaps one of the most important events in any matric girl's life. Apart from the wedding dress, which is custom designed, your Matric Farewell dress is the first dress that you will ever have designed for a special occasion, and will probably be your first encounter when working with a professional fashion designer. There are a few things the matric girl needs to consider when choosing the right fashion designer, and I'd like to highlight a few key pointers just to help you some kind of guideline when it comes to choosing the right designer. In Polokwane alone, we have at least 5 qualified fashion designers, but you need to know the difference between a fashion designer and a good dressmaker. It is always vital that as a matric girl, you do your homework in terms of visiting different designers and getting different quotes for your Matric Farewell dress. Before this can be done, you need to establish a financial budget with your parents so that you have an indication in what kind of price bracket you are working within, because as a fashion designer, I can tell you from personal experience that a client's budget would clearly give me an indication as to what fabrics the client can afford when it comes to designing her most perfect Matric Farewell dress. Because I don't need to tell you that different fabrics create different design effects. So it is vital that the designer understands what kind of budget he is working with so that you don't get any nasty unexpected surprises. When it comes to your Matric Farewell dress, you'll obviously have to contact the designer that you're interested in working with and schedule a professional consultation. At this consultation, it is vital that you introduce all your different design ideas to your designer, ensuring that practicality also needs to be taken into consideration. When presenting your ideas to your designer, it is the designer's responsibility to ensure that your body silhouette or your body type is appropriate for the design that you have in mind. During this consultation, you'll obviously discuss different types of fabrics, different types of design elements and principles, and you'll also talk about relevant color schemes that would be appropriate for the customer's skin complexion, hair and eye color. It is basically after this consultation that your designer will then present you with a quotation. The quotation is very important as it needs to be broken up into 2 factors. One needs to understand exactly what are they going to be charged per hour for the labor of making the dress, and they also need to understand what are the costs of the materials involved in making this dress. Most designers require a 50% deposit before they even start on a project, so that is something you also need to take into consideration as far as your budget is concerned. The next appointment between designer and client should be the appointment where they meet at the fabric store, because as I explained before, specific fabrics are used to create specific design effects, and not all of us have the same impression when referring to one specific color. For an example, your idea of red might not be my idea, and when one sees the vast variety of the color spectrum, one can then be very selective in terms of the color that they desire. At the fabric store, you will obviously be given samples of the fabric, and this is basically when the designer would then take your specific body measurements. The measurements are very important as a pattern is basically manipulated to those body measurements, and this is the main reason as to why you go to a fashion designer. And a pattern has to be manipulated so that you are guaranteed a haute couture, custom designed Matric Farewell dress. Once your 50% deposit has been paid, the designer will then take it upon himself to construct your pattern, and then should contact you once the pattern has been constructed so that you could schedule your necessary fittings leading up to your Matric Farewell date. Now, the most question that I get asked is, when is the best time for you to consult with your designer? The one thing that most clients need to take into consideration is that the Matric Farewell season as well as the bridal season tend to overlap. So come March of every year, most designers are fully booked, especially if one considers that there are 11 high schools throughout Polokwane and that there are only 5 qualified fashion designers. One can imagine battling with the Matric Farewell season and the bridal season, things can be rather overwhelming. So I would advise that you do not leave it to the last minute in order to avoid disappointment. But basically a designer needs 4 to 6 months to construct the dress depending on the design of the dress itself. So once again, I'd like to thank you for another segment of the Fashion Guru. I'm glad that I could have answered all your questions in terms of the appointments when seeing a designer, as well as the importance of the consultations. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll speak to you again next week.